Hi guys. So I'm filming this because I am a little unnerved by what I've seen on social media about something that I kind of know something about: immigration. There has been a controversy over the last couple of days because Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, who many of us love, has moved immigrants, those who were admitted to the United States. They've been called illegal immigrants, but quite frankly, all of the ones that we're talking about are known to the U.S. government because they have been either paroled in or they've been allowed in, and they've been served with paperwork and know that they need to appear at immigration court. So let's not get into the whole legal or illegal dichotomy here. We are talking about people who, as far as I know, have permission to be in the United States for a very specific purpose, and that is to show up in immigration court if they can establish that they have, ultimately under immigration laws, they will have a right to remain in the United States. The problem that many critics of Ron DeSantis are raising is that these individuals are being placed onto, in the case of Florida, planes, in the case of some others who were in Texas, buses to be bused to DC. The problem that a lot of critics of this initiative are targeting or citing or isolating is that this essentially amounts to human trafficking. When I first heard this, I kind of laughed. I was like, oh, really? That's cute. That's really funny that they're actually making that stupid kind of Simpsons-like commentary. And then I realized that they were actually serious. I've actually seen immigration attorneys that I know try and cite federal law that somehow Ron DeSantis is engaging in human trafficking by moving immigrants from one state to another. In this case, moving them from his home state of Florida to Massachusetts. And I'm smiling for, you know why I'm smiling. Massachusetts is as blue as you can probably get. And they have always criticized conservatives for being bigots, nativists, anti-immigration, restrictionists, blah, which has always annoyed me because I happen to be very conservative and I happen to be an immigration attorney and I happen to be in the business of trying to get people to stay here legally in the United States. So, the thing that I really find just rich as can be, is the fact that we have these very, in many cases, if you're talking about Martha's Vineyard, very elite, very affluent, very likely very white individuals who traditionally have talked about how much they care about the plight of immigrants, being horrified when those immigrants that they were perfectly happy to have populate the border states, when they show up at their doorstep. So there is an amazing amount of hypocrisy there. I find it to be liberal hypocrisy. In the past, I have criticized the GOP and conservatives roundly for their refusal to cooperate with Democrats on trying to find some kind of legitimate, solid immigration reform. A compromise somewhere in the middle. We did have Republicans like John McCain, Arlen Specter, at one point Marco Rubio. They tried to work across the aisle, but Republicans refused to cooperate. So I'm not here to start saying, oh, the Republicans are good and the Democrats are bad. No. But in this instance, the Democrats and or liberals and or moderates who are actually suggesting that what Ron DeSantis is doing is illegal and is a crime at federal law, are just advancing some kind of political narrative on the backs of suffering immigrants. And during the Trump administration, and I criticized Trump roundly for this, to the dismay of many of my conservative friends, during that administration, there was a concerted effort, including the very, very regrettable process of child separation, to discourage people from crossing the border. And in many cases, it actually worked. It did, for good or for ill, discourage a lot of the flow across the border because people were afraid that their children were going to be separated from them. There was also a lot of messaging from the Trump administration that the border was not a welcoming place for them. After Trump left, kicking and screaming from the White House, there was a change in tone, a change in messaging. And with that change in messaging, there was also a change in messaging from a lot of the, Telemundo and Univision and a lot of the Latin language media that made it appear that the border had reopened and that you could enter the United States, whether it be by claiming asylum or whatever way. This, unfortunately, had the domino effect of increasing human trafficking across the border. And that human trafficking starts in the Northern Triangle, in El Salvador, in Guatemala, in Honduras, in Nicaragua, I named most of the countries that I deal with. And these people, these poor individuals who are suffering horrific conditions in their own countries, human rights violations in their own countries, they see the possibility of coming to the United States as their only alternative, la única esperanza. And so they put themselves in the hands of these coyotes, these true human traffickers, people who take money to lead people illegally out of one country into another country illegally, into a third country illegally, and finally into the United States illegally. People die during these voyages. People are kidnapped and never seen again during these voyages. Women are raped. Women are raped. I have firsthand experience with this during these voyages because of these coyotes. And because of these voyages that you might say, well, they decide by themselves to make these treks. Honey, cupcakes, if you haven't seen what those countries are like and those conditions are like in those countries, please don't try and make it seem as if, well, they just decided to take a day trip to the United States. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, that's my liberal side coming out. That's my pro-immigrant side coming out. That's my freaking practical side coming out. And that's the side that's pissed off at the GOP and conservatives who want to close their eyes to our complicity in getting these people to the United States. Okay, back to Christine, who is appalled by what she sees liberals and Democrats doing and playing and using these immigrants, these suffering immigrants, as chess pieces to advance their own political goals. They send these messages out. You got AOC at the border. Oh my God, it's so horrible what's happening, bent over in grief about what's happening at the border, and she's done absolutely damn nothing to help them. And her colleagues in the squad and in the Democratic Party have done absolutely nothing to help them either. And you have this messaging coming out that would attract these suffering individuals to come to the United States. Because believe me, nobody who has a good life is going to go through what they have to go through to make it to this country. And I yelled at someone on Twitter, which essentially means I blocked this person on Twitter, because he was out there saying, oh, don't talk to me about human rights. Don't try and conflate what's happening at the border with human and civil rights. It's like, buddy, you don't know a damn thing. Because what's happening at the border is because of the crises in the Northern Triangle countries. Okay? And the drugs and the gangs and all of that is part of this same horrific catastrophic structure built on the suffering of human beings. But be that as it may, the idea that Ron DeSantis, by moving one group of people from his state, which is not a sanctuary state, by the way, to other states like Massachusetts, which have in fact sanctuary cities and have in fact criticized all of the recalcitrance of the Republicans while doing absolutely nothing to advance immigrant rights. To say that movement of immigrants between those particular regions is just, it's so annoying and so unnerving, and it's completely incorrect. And you will have people, I am sure, on CNN and MSNBC and, is Air America still on? I don't think so. But, whatever other biased news site that you can come on saying, well, this is human trafficking, comparing what Ron DeSantis did, you will hear that. And I hope and I pray that you do not fall for it. You do not believe that what I know as human trafficking, and I've seen as human trafficking, and maybe some of you know as human trafficking. I know my friend Karen, who has worked with Salvadoran immigrants, understands what I'm talking about. Those of you who have worked with immigrants who suffer at the border understand that this rhetoric is all a midterm ploy to undermine the political future and political interests of a politician that the left cannot stand. And you know what? Have at it. Attack DeSantis. Do what you want to do legitimately to attack his policies. I happen to think he's great, but I respect people who have a problem with what he's done with educational policy and many of the other different initiatives I can't even think of now that he has pursued. I happen to think he's great. A lot of people don't think he's great. That's fine. Have at it. Do it honestly. Do it decently. Do not use desperate people as pawns, Democrats. Don't you dare. Don't you dare.